20 years. It's been 20 years since the first Pokemon movie was released. And since I've spent the last couple of years reviewing these movies, I think it's only fair I review the newest one that came out this year. Pokemon the Movie, I Choose You. Yes, they seriously reused the title from the very first episode of the series to tie into the anniversary. Now, since the movie isn't out on DVD yet, the version I'm reviewing is the TV version, and is also dubbed, but yeah, it's kind of a thing with this channel. Thankfully, though, there doesn't seem to be that many cuts to this version, save for the credits getting skimmed, so I shouldn't have to worry too much about something important getting cut from this version. But yeah, I just wanted to get that disclaimer out of the way. So is this better than the last Pokemon movie? Let's find out. Our film begins with a World of Pokemon that's a stadium. Kinda weird to see one of these movies open up without a World of Pokemon recap nowadays, especially since the last dozen or so mostly had them. Anyways, we get these two trainers fighting, just like in the intro to the anime and or games. We have our Gengar and Blastoise? 0 out of 10, worst adaptation ever. That should have been an Nidorino. But yeah, you may have noticed something about the animation. Mainly that it's not the silly/weird animations in the Sun and Moon anime. Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that too. I thought this movie would have kept that art style, but no, we're back to the animation from the Kalos anime. Which means the lighting and art style are crisp, the backgrounds are good. Hell, they even have the great camera angles and 3D backgrounds that the battles in the Kalos saga had, and it looks really damn good. So yeah, on an animation front, this is a really good looking movie. Good job, animators. After this scene, we pretty much get the same action scene from the first episode of the series. Ash wakes up late, the three trainers claim their stars before Ash can get his Pokemon. Ash gets the Pikachu, which for some reason is just roaming around the lab this time. We cut to Gary and his cheerleaders. Wait, what? There's no scene of that? What the hell? That's like Gary's big introduction. Now how are they going to introduce him? Well, folks, they don't. Aside from a tiny little scene where he picks up the Squirtle, Gary doesn't appear in this movie. Yes, one of the better rivals from the anime who had an interesting arc and personality throughout the Indigo League and her show is nowhere to be seen in this movie. What the hell? Oh, but don't worry, this movie still has a rival for Ash to fight. Too bad they fuck him up, but we'll get to that when we get there. For now, we get more stuff from the first episode, such as Ash failing to catch a Pidgey, throwing a rock at a Spearow and not catching it, despite it being statistically better than the Pidgey line. They run from a horde of Spearow/Fearow, they encounter Misty. Misty's not in this either? Yep, and just like Gary, replaced with someone worse. Same with Brock. Great. Oh, but don't worry, Team Rocket is in this. And they fuck them up, too. This is starting up on a high note, isn't it? Whatever, we cut to Pikachu saving Ash's Ash from the spear, and then the two are suddenly friends? Yeah, fuck that noise. I excused it a little when the anime did it because of runtime, but this is an hour and 38-minute film, and they basically have them as friends within the first 10 minutes, less than half the runtime of the first episode. Yeah, fuck off. This is shitty pacing. And get used to that, folks, because after Ho shows up to give Ash a Rainbow Wing, we get our opening montage where Ash gets his Caterpie, we get a couple small scenes with it, then we see Ash win the Rainbow Badge. Wow, we're already at 4 badges? Jesus Christ. No, this is actually his third. Yeah, the Pewter City and Cerulean gym leaders were sent to the Shadow Realm or something, so I just stole their badges. So after that scene, we cut to a Pokemon Center where Ash is talking to Delia, and while this is going on, we get introduced to Team Rocket snooping around with the old hole in the newspaper trick. Oh, don't worry though, the page they cut out was a predictable fake news joke a reviewer can make. Good thing I'm not that guy. So some guy comes in with a Vaporeon and reports that an Entei is in the area, even though it should be in fucking Johto, and Ash goes off to find it. But as he does so, he runs into a girl with a Piplup chasing after the same legendary, and the two have a race. This girl is named Verity, and just to get this out of the way, I hate her character. I hate her personality, I hate her chemistry with Ash and the other companion we'll see later. Basically, she's an annoying character that I was glad to see leave when the movie was over. Oh sure, she has mommy issues or some crap, but it doesn't excuse how much of a terrible replacement for Misty she is. Then again, due to the bad pacing, they probably would have fucked up Brock and Misty too if they were in this movie, so it's like, either way, character element's gonna take a hit. So after Verity and Ash get their asses kicked by the Entei, this guy pops in with his Lucario, and uses an Aura Sphere on a fire type. And it goes about as well as you'd expect, with Lucario getting its ass kicked. Which is funny, because given how this guy's role in the movie is to basically provide exposition, this guy should know that a Pokemon using fire type attacks probably wouldn't be all that affected by a fighting type attack. Hell, it makes even less sense when you consider that later on in the movie we see Lucario pull out a bone, which, based on the anime at least, implies that he's using Bone Rush. a ground type attack. But I digress. This guy is named Sorrel, and like Verity, he's also not that good. His chemistry with Ash and Verity is flat, his personality isn't all that interesting, and like Verity, he's not all that memorable either. Oh sure, he has a tragic backstory, which I'll talk about in a bit, but he's ultimately not a good companion character. So Verity and Ash have a battle. Verity uses Hydro Pump, Pikachu dodges, sort of. The camera makes it look like it was going to hit Pikachu's side if it didn't dodge. And it hits an Onix trying to sleep, waking it up and causing it to go apeshit. Great work, Verity! Also, Team Rocket gets blown away by the Onix. Yeah, get used to that, folks, because that's pretty much all they do in this fucking movie. Yeah, they totally need to be here. It's not like they're wasting fucking screen time or anything. Whatever, Ash manages to calm down the Onix, but as it begins to rain, and as our two try and find shelter, they come across a Charmander with its flame getting weaker. But then Charmander runs towards its original trainer, and the trainer kicks it aside. Let's get this out of the way. This is Cross, Ash's rival for the movie. Yeah, we could have had Gary, or any of Ash's other rivals from the Kanto or Johto region, but no, let's make up a new rival instead and also advertise Gen 7 while we're at it. We couldn't have simply done that with Gary or anyone else. Not that it matters anyways, because Cross is basically an asshole with no redeemable qualities, barely anything that makes me love to hate him, and even his personality isn't all that unique. They basically tried to make another Paul, which, may I remind you, failed with Trip, and barely did anything new with it. With Paul, he had respect for people stronger than him, and even Ash as time went on. His attitude brought out the best in Ash during their battles. His method of training Pokemon he felt were strong was effective, since a lot of his Pokemon were legitimately strong, and because of Paul's training, made it harder for Ash to take them down, especially as Drapion in the Sinnoh League, and what a surprise, this was the first time they had a rival as brutal/mean as Paul in the anime, and make the rivalry between the two genuinely effective. With Cross, however, we have a guy who only cares about being the strongest, will treat his Pokemon like shit if they're weak, and only cares about being the best. Wow, what an interesting and unique character that has never been done before in this fucking series. But even if we take out Paul from this equation, say he never existed before this point, Cross still doesn't work as a good rival because his personality is shit, his chemistry with Ash's rival is incredibly weak sauce, and yet again, he doesn't even have any traits of a love-to-hate character. Even when he loses near the end of the movie, I wasn't cheering because Ash defeated a powerful rival. I was shrugging my shoulders because I was hoping this guy would finally get the fuck out of the movie, which didn't happen, but we'll get to that. Point is, Cross is a terrible rival, and while I would normally argue that if I hate him, it means the writer did their job making me care about them, that doesn't work here because he doesn't suck because he's a douchebag. He sucks because he's poorly written. So Ash and What's-Her-Face take the Charmander into a cave, and they encounter Sorrel again, who tends to the Charmander quickly. Three of them talk for a bit and give their reasons for being in the region, before we get some exposition on the three legendary dogs, who are basically only in this movie for the sake of the quest Ash has to go on in order to put the Rainbow Wing on a glowing rock. So yeah, basically we have another story with Ash as the chosen one. Well, sort of. Near the end of the movie, Ho goes to other regions to give Rainbow Wings to people it likes, so it's not a case of Ash being the only one who could save the world or something. Thank God. But this scene does give us something stupid! Marshadow's in this movie! And all it really does is hang around our group for a bit and then do one thing before the climax. But we'll get to that. Needless to say though, like the rivals and companions in this movie, they fuck up the mythical Pokemon too. Great! Oh, and Ash gets the Charmander. Whoop-de-fucking-do. So the three of them go after Ho-Oh, we get Caterpie evolving into Metapod, and then we cut to a few nights later, where Verity is looking at pics of her, Sorrel, and Ash doing things off screen before she stumbles across a picture of her mother. Bootleg Cynthia. Seriously, whoever colored in this character really needs to look at a fucking reference sheet. So though, could make for a good episode about Pokemon bootlegs. She also encounters a Suicune during the scene, and that's about it. Not much else really happens with her in the Suicune, so we cut to the next day, where Ash's Charmander evolves into a Charmeleon, and the bit from the show, where Charmeleon's a disobedient dick, is cut from the movie. I would get pissy about this, but the arc they instead go with, where it gets stronger to be up the trainer they abandoned, is fine, so I won't complain too much about it. Speaking of getting pissy though, Cross shows back up and the two fight. We also find out that abilities are a thing in this movie, as shown with Incineroar intentionally taking damage so that his Blaze ability can activate. And yet when Charmeleon takes a lot of damage in the same fight, this ability does not kick in for it, even though it's Charmeleon's primary ability. Oh, and the thing with abilities that could make the battles more interesting? Never brought up again in the movie after this scene. Great! I just love wasted potential. Speaking of wasted potential, after Ash gets pissy over his loss and runs off, the Rainbow Wing turns dark and Ash dreams about a world without Pokemon. It's actually a pretty interesting scene, seeing how Ash interacts with this world that doesn't have any Pokemon and is pretty much our world in animated form, as well as how he handles it. And this is the only scene with it. And it doesn't even amount to much in terms of the overall plot. Great! Fantastic! An interesting premise that could have been its own special in its own right, completely wasted! Lovely! And sadly, this isn't the only thing wasted. After Sorrel and Verity find him, we get Sorrel's backstory. Basically, his parents worked all the time, so his only companion was a Luxray, but one night while he was snowboarding or something, he hit the ground hard and couldn't get up. He almost froze to death, but then Luxray showed up and saved his life, at the cost of his own, freezing to death in the snow the next day. And while I do have problems with his death, namely why the hell didn't Luxray simply carry the young Sorrel on his back home since we don't know how far it is and he seemed to be dead in the morning anyways, I will let it slide because in the grand scheme of things, it makes me feel something towards this movie that's not hatred at the writing or other crap. It may also be because Luxray is one of my favorite Pokemon, but whatever. Besides, there is a bigger issue with the backstory. After Luxray's death, Sorrel says he had a hard time making friends with Pokemon for a long time, until he met Lucario. We're not shown his struggles in making friends with Pokemon, or trying to form a bond with Lucario. We're merely told this, and even in present day, this bond isn't really present either. In fact, Lucario doesn't really do much in this movie to begin with, so not only does this break the show don't tell rule, but the Pokemon he makes friends with is barely doing much to begin with. And wait a minute, why even have Luxray in the flashback? Sorrel himself explained that his parents were always working, so he didn't have many friends except for Luxray. Why not just take out the Luxray and have him struggle to try to make friends with Pokemon as a means to fill in that hole of not having a companion/friend until he meets Riolu/Lucario, and then have them become friends? That way, we see his struggles firsthand, we see the bond between him and Lucario, and not merely told, and it would explain why he's not all that social in comparison to Verity and Ash, since he didn't have many friends growing up to talk to. I know an argument can be made that it would drag out the runtime, but this is the 20th anniversary movie. I don't think people are going to care that the movie is a couple minutes longer than the past movies, especially if it means the characters/pacing are improved upon. Hell, it kinda says something that a non-anniversary film like Disney's Moana, released last year mind you, is only a few minutes longer than this, and it's able to use that runtime more effectively, especially in terms of its character arcs and pacing, than a film meant to celebrate 20 years of a long-running series. But I digress. Marshadow pops in again to waste the viewer's time before Pikachu attacks it, and its attack sends out a bunch of Primeapes, and what do? Throw them a few inches up into the air! Those fiends! Yeah, Metapod just string shots them and then evolves. And then Ash shoots the sleep powder to get away. We cut to the next day where Butterfree meets the pink Butterfree, and then Ash lets it go. And to be honest, I'm okay with this. It still portrays Butterfree in a good light, and it manages to convey the emotions of saying goodbye to a friend tier pretty well. So let's ruin that by introducing this guy who also exists just to give exposition. This is Bonji, who's been trying to find Hoa for years, and basically points them in the direction of the mountain, while also expositing that Marshadow is a guy from the shadows, and basically seals up faded colors, or some crap like that. Really, this is just padding for the big action scenes, so let's just cut to it. Cross and Ash fight, Charmeleon evolves, and Ash wins. But before he can put the Rainbow Wing in the rock and end this movie, Cross gets whiny and takes the Rainbow Wing for himself, causing the Rainbow Wing to lose all of its colors and Marshadow to go insane and attack everything. Yes! Marshadow is the villain now. I would express more surprise over this, but given how Marshadow barely did anything this entire movie, I'd be more surprised, frankly, if it turned out he did nothing during this bit. So yeah, we lose a human villain, admittedly not much of a personality, over a character that basically has no personality and just wants to destroy everything. I hate these kinds of villains. They're not all that memorable, and they're basically just minor fucking annoyances in comparison to villains with actual personality and depth to them. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd rather have a fucking scumbag like the villain from the last movie over this. Because at least he had a fucking character. This kind of villain also doesn't give me much to work with either. So, yeah, not a fan of Marshadow being the bad guy. And really, all he does is mind control some Pokemon and fight Pikachu for a bit. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Oh, and Charizard saves Cross, the guy that abused it and left it out in the rain to potentially die. Yeah, sure movie. Sure, I can totally fucking buy that. Blow me. Oh sure, the action is still good, and I do like that Ash's companions get to contribute in the climax, but those are the closest things this scene is getting in terms of positivity. So Ash and his group get their asses kicked, Ash dies after a couple of attacks from all the Pokemon and fades away, because shut up, and Pikachu loses it and breaks the Pokemon free of their mind control with a giant electric attack, because sure, why not? I can expect a ground type to be severely weakened by thunder attacks. Oh, and there was also the Talking Pikachu scene, but honestly, given how Ash was near death, I can buy being a hallucination. Even then, compared to all the other stupid fucking shit from this climax, this is tame by comparison. So Ash comes back to life, the Rainbow Wing is back in Ash's hands, Marshadow fucks off, and good riddance! And Ho-Oh appears. The two fight it, and then Ash and his friends go their separate ways. The end. Roll credits. As a story, I hate it. The pacing is terrible, the character arcs are shit, the writing is terrible, and while there isn't that many plot holes in comparison to older films, that's probably the best thing I can say about the story as a whole. And for a 20th anniversary film, I expected a lot better. Especially since, as shown with Lucario's film, they've been able to nail down a story very well. Hell, even the 10th movie was able to pull that off. So what's this film's excuse? The characters aren't much better. I already went over my issues with the replacement rival/companions, but Team Rocket was wasted here, only being used to get blasted into the fucking sky. Bonji was flat as all hell. Marshada was also a shitty character/villain, and didn't really do all that much until the end. Really, the only characters I thought were okay were Ash and Pikachu. Despite the rushed pacing for their friendship in the first 10 minutes, I liked their chemistry after that point, to the point where I felt for Pikachu when Ash died. Ash's personality was tolerable as well. Really, if Ash's companions didn't exist and it was just these two, I'd say the film would be slightly better, because unlike Sorrel and Lucario, I can see the bond these two share, unlike Sorrel, where it's told, and that's it. Animation's pretty good, like I said earlier, so let's wrap this up with audio. The opening and ending pieces are good. I really do like seeing the first Pokemon theme remix, so that kind of helps as well. Unfortunately, though, the background music is just there. Not terrible, not fantastic, it just exists. Oh, and allegedly the dub changed a lot of the soundtrack, but it shouldn't be too hard to find the soundtrack of the original online. As for the voices, they're okay. So, yeah, audio is mediocre at best. Overall, Pokemon the movie I Choose You is a mess. The story is terrible, the characters are not that good, the music is mediocre at best. The only saving grace of this film is probably a couple of scenes and the animation. Again, maybe it's because I expected more out of the 20th movie, but even as a regular film, it's not that good. And that's probably the biggest disappointment of all this. And despite my issues with this film, maybe with the film being a success at the box office, this might get the studio making these films back on track towards making good movies. Because hey, maybe it was a low budget that crippled the other ones. Only time will tell. But yeah, in terms of ranking, this is probably the second worst Pokemon movie I've ever seen. So, number 19. But still, I'd say give it a look, especially if you're a fan of Generation 1. As for everyone else who isn't that big on Pokemon, I'd skip this one. There are much better Pokemon films out there. So that concludes this review. I'm the Mounty, and next time we meet, I wonder when all the Stardust come together in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. See you then.
Time to kill the White Lantern.
And he's in Egypt. It's time to end this apophis.